Hello, I'm Liu Guangya. I work with IBM in terms of IBM Cloud Private. This is an open source project, so I'm also part of this open source project, including Kubernetes H2 Federation, etc. Thank you.
All right, so for today's talk, we will provide an overview of this SIG called IBM Cloud SIG. We'll then just just talk about the structure of the SIG, a little bit about the activities we do, and then we will give an overview of the IBM clouds, the public clouds and private clouds. On the public side, we'll talk about IBM Cloud Kubernetes Service, IKS. Private side, we'll talk about IBM Cloud Private. We'll not go in much detail, but just to provide an overview, because the SIG is about those IBM public and private clouds on Kubernetes perspective, and then we'll talk a little bit about the SIG contributions we are making to the upstream Kubernetes on the various projects, and then we'll just summarize the talk. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt anytime. I'm glad that Guangya is here. So language is not a problem. So feel free to interrupt us anytime. Just overview the SIG. I think everyone is familiar with the SIG, right? There are over I think 30 SIGs in Kubernetes, and there are some of them are cloud provider SIGs. IBM Cloud Special Interest Group is about how we support and use and leverage the Kubernetes with IBM public and private clouds. As I said, we have a IBM Cloud Kubernetes Service on the public side, and then IBM Cloud Private, which is on-prem, or even it runs in the public cloud, but on its own. And then I'd like to mention that both of these platforms, we participate in the CNCF conformance program, and they both are certified. I know we had a little talk on conformance this morning in the keynotes, right? How important is that for any cloud provider? So in this part of the SIG discussions, many developers and leaders from the IBM Cloud Private and the IKS side, they participate in the discussions. We talk about the current contributions we are making into the communities, and then the future directions, right? It's all open discussions, so you can also, you follow the evaluations on both IKS and ICB platforms with respect to Kubernetes and other CNCF projects, Prometheus and other Helm, SIG. This is not a SIG for any commercial discussion, so that's the one thing we don't discuss in the SIG. There are other channels for those sort of discussions. And as part of this discussion, you also interact directly with the folks, right, who are behind this IBM private and public clouds. Also, I want to mention that this is a relatively new SIG. We created this SIG in the April this year. It was pretty much announced at the time of KubeCon in Copenhagen. So this is actually our first introduction and deep dive sessions at any KubeCon. So talking about the structure, we meet every other week, so every other Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So last Wednesday we had a meeting. We will have a next meeting next Wednesday. Unfortunately, the timing doesn't work for everyone, especially for the folks in Asia, China and other countries, right? The timing is not, it's a little barrier for the meetings. But down the road, if we have more interest from, other places, I think we will start even thinking about having alternate timing zone kind of meetings. So a lot of SIGs, actually, they already started it. So we'll think on that too, and we can support that depending on the interest. I have provided a link there. So all the meetings are recorded, and the videos are out there on YouTube, including the one we had last week. So if you haven't able to attend those meetings, the recordings are there for you to take a look. As I said, you interact with the leads from the different cloud sides. So the structure for SIG is we have 3 leads. That's the one thing we always want to keep, 3 leads. And we have Richard Theis from IKS side. We have Khalid Ahmed from ICP side. He's actually one of the founders for the ICP. He's IBM Distinguished Engineer in Canada. And then myself, I co-lead the SIG from the open source side. We have charter out there on the website. Again, there is a link right there, and it's a little thin charter, but it basically specifies the things and the structure in a little bit detail there. We would love to have more folks joining the discussions around the SIG and the IBM Cloud. So here, there is a link for the Google mailing list we have, and one of the best way to sort of keep in touch, asking questions, whatnot, right? We have Slack channel. It's a Kubernetes Slack channel along with all other channels there, SIG-IBM Cloud. So, if you are ever have questions, want to know more, just please feel free to ping over there, and somebody will respond. It's myself, Richard, or even Khalid. We have Doug here. So we all sort of watch the Slack channels. And you can read more about the SIG on the main web page, which is again on the Kubernetes upstream repo. So I want to mention what kind of things we do in the meetings, right? Just at high level, typically you have like a sort of two different ways to talk around the things. So similar in a similar fashion to Kubernetes community meeting, where they start with some little demo and that kind of things, little overview kind of things. So that's what we do at this SIG as well. So first 10 minutes, 15 minutes is for someone from ICP side, from IKS side, from open source side, to provide an overview. It's again around the Kubernetes. And here are the different topics out there. So we started our first meeting again like in May timeframe this year, with a little overview on IKS side. What was the talking about IBM Cloud strategy. We guys are a big believer in hybrid cloud. So we believe that the workloads in cloud will be in the public side, in the private side, and in between, spread it between public-private side, right? So. So that was sort of the first talk on that. It's again on the YouTube if you guys want to ever sort of listen to it. We talked about different things like how what's the update strategy, right? So on IKS side, like 3 releases of Kubernetes are supported all the time. We talk about things like scalability. Actually, Guangia was leading that work on the ICP side. I think few months back, we talked about 1,000+ nodes certification. I think we're already working on, 2,500 nodes now? Yeah, the work is in progress, and he will talk more on that. And then in the sort of second part, after having that overview, it's discussion around the contributions, right, we're making to the upstream Kubernetes. And that includes a lot of different things, not just the PRs, right? Not just writing the code. That's one thing. Other thing is things like the working with the cloud provider special interest group that was created sometime back this year, with the goal of bringing different cloud provider SIGs as in like a sub project, having everything underneath one umbrella. So we're also working with them. Richard, one of the SIG lead, he actually regularly attends those meetings. And like I said, we have work in progress. It will take us, I think, some time. We're shooting for 1.13 release of Kubernetes. Things like cloud provider code. If you guys are familiar with all these cloud provider SIGs, one of the things they talk about is the codes, right? The codes which they have to easily have Kubernetes running on top of whatever is they're offering, right, on their cloud. And that required some sort of extension from their side. So that is another work in progress kind of things from our side. Tomorrow we have deep dive, and we'll talk a little bit more on that. If you're interested, please do come. It's 4 p.m. tomorrow. And then, what a lot of things around maintaining this SIG. So that kind of things are also discussed. And like I said, not just PR, but issues, some of the discussions we are making, from the IBM Cloud teams. So those are the activities around the meetings, in the meetings. And next few slides, I just want to touch base, with the IKS, and which was followed by going on ICP sides. So IKS, like I said, it's the public cloud side of IBM Cloud's offering. It's a Kubernetes service, and it provides an intuitive user experience with simplified cluster lifecycle management, built-in security and isolations, and on top of that, it provides an easy integration of, I would say 100 plus, couple hundred services, whether it's a Watson analytics services, whether it's something from weather data, weather.com, IoT, and whatnot. It's available in 6 different IBM regions worldwide, including 25 data centers. As I mentioned previously, all these 3 releases which are supported right now in IKS, they are certified. It's 1.9, 10, and 1.11. And you can find more on, there's a link right there if you want to dig more. So these are the 6 regions I mentioned, in North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, different places with the 25 data centers. And you can have a single zone cluster, multi-zone cluster. We'll talk a bit more on that as well. So IKS provides all these Kubernetes capabilities. These are the standard capabilities. I think we all know about them. Intelligent scheduling. We know Kubernetes schedules the pod utilizing the resources at its base. Self-healing, declarative language, it heals itself. Horizontal scaling, either through the command line interface or based on certain CPU utilizations, you scale your workloads. Service discovery, load balancing, that's what another thing IKS provides. And that's the cloud product code I was talking about. Rollouts, rollbacks, and the secret and configuration management, right? So these are things we know. Those are the Kubernetes capabilities. On top of them, the cluster management capabilities, right? So it's sort of out of box simplified cluster management. You have a graphical user interface to manage your cluster. You have ways to manage through API calls. You can manage through the command line interface, whatnot. You design your own cluster when you create your cluster with IKS. So you basically have options to have the computes you are using, whether you want it dedicated computes or you are using it in a shared space, whether you want a single zone, like I said, or multi-zone cluster, right? So it's all you design it. It provides container security and isolations, the network isolation, storage, compute isolations. And as I previously mentioned, you can extend the cluster with your apps with I think about 170 or so services from Watson and other services. Also persistence volume, right? So you just get that as well, and it's 100% native open source experience, 100% Kubernetes experience. You get the Kubernetes dashboard, right? All the standard Kubernetes command, all those YAML files, whatnot, you use as such. No surprises there, no complications. And then it comes with a lot of integrated tools, right? So for your monitoring, for logging, security, whatnot. And this is just real quick slides on, besides our customer, we use this IKS in big time within IBM, right? Watson. Everybody knows Watson, I guess. Heard about it? Yeah? So, several things we do with Watson, and this is an example of the AI workloads running on IKS, from the Watson team. As you can see, they have a big deployment, thousands of pods running on hundreds of nodes, and a little quote there from the Watson team that how happy they are, not managing the infrastructure required for their deployments, right? And it's done by IKS. This is a little recap of all the great things I was talking about IKS. So multiple data centers, support for ingress and load balancer, dynamic persistence volume support, highly available IBM managed Kubernetes master. So as an user, you don't have to worry about managing the master. It's maintained by and managed by IKS team or IKS, and like I said, 170 plus services from the IBM catalog. And with that, I think I will wrap up on IKS side, and I would like Guangya to talk a little more about the ICP and the work we are contributing.
我的同事给大家讲讲这个 ICP。Hello everybody, so I want to talk about IBM Cloud Private. So as you can see here, IBM Cloud Private, you can actually read it bottom up. So as for this platform, there are 3 apps, and also it runs in different systems, and also it supports different provider. So as for many cloud users, they deploy it in OpenStack, VMware, and other systems. And as you can see here, this is the IBM Cloud Private core. So here, these are the components. It includes Kubernetes. So Kubernetes can do container management and scheduling, and Helm can actually be used for packaging. For example, there are complicated apps that needs to be packaged. And also Calico can actually manage the container network. And this is the core service. This is IBM Cloud Private concept. So as for the user, Kubernetes is not enough. So they need other components so that it can carry out a monitoring function and reduce the burden of the user. So we have introduced a core service concept which can be used for logging and alerts, etc. Moreover, Terraform. So the major reason for Terraform is that there can be extension of the platform. So Terraform can be used for extension of the platform. So Terraform can actually use a VM so that it can simplify the procedures. And then as for the microservice here, there can be management of microservices as well. So this can also help the users in other burdens like distribution and limitation of workload. So these are the major components of IBM Cloud Private. So it's not only about building the platform, but also using the middleware and simplify it as a hamware. And then with IBM Cloud Private, then all of these microservices can run smoothly. So DB2 can also be integrated. So for many apps, they can be found at the catalog. So this is about IBM Cloud Private. Next, I want to talk about IBM Multicloud. First, why Multicloud? Well, there are 3 reasons, as you can see here. First reason is the unique needs of the users. You can imagine that for each user, when they deploy the service, there are different requirements. Some may want higher stability of the server, some may want to reduce their cost. So actually, we can actually deploy it at the request of our users. Second is legacy apps. So for some users, they have already deployed certain services or apps in the system, and then they need some new apps. So we need to avoid the pain of migrating legacy apps to the new platform. The last one is the desire to diversity. So some users they don't want to be locked by a certain vendor. so we can avoid vendor lock-in and latency while creating redundancy. And as for IBM Multicloud Manager, this is a new product which was launched recently. So as for the functions, there are three parts. First is visibility. So that means for different platforms, we can make sure that for this cloud system, it can be visible. When there are many clouds, we need to have a tool to help us to search the resources we need. So with IBM Multicloud Manager, we need to have only one console to search the different cloud platforms. And also, we can actually check the status of the cloud platforms. So with Multi-Cloud Manager, it can provide better visibility. Secondly, it can provide security. So when there are many users, then for each user, there is a specific cloud platform. So there will be different powers distributed to each management, to each platform. And then we also need to have more management on the system. For example, some are authorized to read the system, and some are authorized to create some apps. So this can help to enhance the security. Thirdly, it can also provide application management. As I mentioned, each user has their unique demand. Some may want to reduce their cost, and some may want higher performance. So for the applications, there are different strategies for management and for optimization of the applications. So this can help to customize our service to the users. This is the IBM Multicloud Manager. Apart from the three functions here, then we have a federation and LSTO. So this can also be added here for mesh. Last but not least, I want to talk about the contribution to open source from IBM. So just now we have talked about IBM Cloud Private. So if we want to produce a better product, then we need to contribute to open source. And only with that, we can know the trend in open source. So IBM has contributed a lot to open source in Kubernetes, Istio, and Federation. We are one of the leading actors here. So we have done resource management and storage. And for IBM Cloud Private, it's based on Kubernetes, K8s. So there are many problems faced with our users. So we are going to give feedback to the users' challenges and provide a patch and fix the patch in the community. And moreover, and this is also what we have done in this system. So we rank number 2 in this area in microservice. And also this can replace Kubernetes Federation v2. And this can actually raise a general plan, and through Federation v2, this can manage the cloud system. As for this project, it started in May this year. And it's a very new project, but you can see that this community is very active, and we have a weekly meeting. And the major leads are Red Hat, Huawei, and IBM. So what you see here are the highlights of the weekly meetings. And in every company, we have attendance. In every meeting, we record the attendance from different companies and the discussion highlights.
So this first project are the key project we have been working on. But in these three, we also need others in the community, including the list clause registry, application ingress controller. For clause registry, we keep on the IBM Cloud Monitor. We use it to manage the clusters because we need to have a third-party resource to define these resources so that the user needs cluster registry to check, create, or delete the clusters in the system. Second is application. This is project with great potential. The reason we hired it is because time V3. After that, we will no longer have that. So in Kubernetes, we will all have all the application managed through this project. There will be no more killers, and all the project will be managed through CRD. The last one is ingress controller. So when user want to access certain services, we need to expose the services, so the user will be able to have access to the service from outside. So we will have ingress controller, so the user can have access to the services. And IBM, while deploying ingress controller, we found many problems. Therefore, we add many patches in the system in terms of scaling and dynamically NGX.com problems. So those are the major contributions we did to the community. Update 3 and Sahdev also talked about ETCD and other communities. We all have our contributions. That should be shown as a
I think this should work for me. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much, Guangia. So yeah, just to summarize this talk, this is a SIG for supporting and leveraging Kubernetes within IBM public and private clouds. As I mentioned earlier, we would love to have more folks joining the discussions around this SIG. And it basically going to follow the evolutions of the IKS and ICP and the multi-cloud manager side, in respect to Kubernetes and related CNCF projects. And as Guangia mentioned, the cloud team significantly contributes to the Kubernetes upstream. And the near-term goal for the SIG is to open source the cloud provider code. Again, something that we'll talk a little bit more in tomorrow's deep dive session. So if you have interest and if your schedule permit, please do come over. Love to have you. And that's the, I think, the end of the talk. And we can take any questions, any discussions, right now, later. Yep. Sure.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I want to know more details about the cloud provider code we are going to open source. Is that include which part? Will that include the network or storage or any other part for the ICAS service?
Sure. No, that's a good question. And again, as I said, we'll talk a little bit more in tomorrow's talk. But so the cloud provider code right now we have is more about, or pretty much about the load balancer. It's something, we created this repo when there was no such thing in Kubernetes upstream like cloud provider code. So that was something created internally to support the load balancer service. Not more than that we're doing. It's load balancer, a little bit ingress support. That's pretty much it. And our goal there is to open source it. We're shooting for the 1.13 release of Kubernetes, but to have just one repo and that'll be external repository with whatever we have. Again, it's more on the load balancer side. That's pretty much we needed to support Kubernetes on the IKS. Yep. Any other question? And like I said, feel free to reach out to us, on the Slack channel or with the mailing list or anything. With any questions even afterwards, we'll like to get back to you. Well, if no other questions, then thank you so much. I guess we are almost at the time, so appreciate it.